Welcome back to the channel. Something a little bit different in this video because it's Microsoft themed. So I'm going to talk about data security and making sure data lives in the right places and doesn't leave and end up in the wrong places. If you're new to the topic, it can be a little bit confusing. There's so many services and things you can do around data protection. So I've broken it down into 4 simple steps, and this is the methodology that Microsoft use when it comes to data protection. Let's get into it. What you're about to see is the most simple version of a strategy to protect your data in your business and how you should be handling the data in your business. So hopefully I've broken this down into a as simplified as possible version of what you're doing today, perhaps what you're not doing today, maybe you're doing bits of it, or maybe you're completely new to the topic and you just don't know how to start. So the Microsoft approach when it comes to this is pretty straightforward. First step is all about knowing your data. So locating sensitive content by scanning. So we scan the environment, we look for sensitive information types that we commonly call SITs. It's the core of data classification. So before you can protect anything, you've got to know what you have and where it lives, right? So that's where data classification comes in, locating that sensitive content, scanning your environment to find where it lives. And actually, if you already have Microsoft 365 services like SharePoint Online, OneDrive Online, and Exchange Online, and so on, it actually automatically detects and classifies SITs already. So things like credit card numbers, national insurance numbers, health records. 3 examples in 300 plus built-in classifiers that work out of the box. And you can tweak them as well using templates or keywords for your specific needs. You can also create your own patterns. And a pattern is just a way to describe what the platform's looking for. So for example, out of the box, we might be looking for 16-digit numbers because credit cards have 4 sets of 4 numbers. But there could genuinely be a 16-digit number in a document or a file, and it's a false positive. And we call this confidence. So that would be a low confidence. I'm not that confident that it's a credit card. Yes, it's got a 16-digit number, but so can lots of other things have a 16-digit number. When you combine that with the word Visa, MasterCard, CVV, expiry, these other things that we expect for that type of SIT, then you've got a high confidence that that's a credit card match. That is basically how the patterns and the confidence levels work. For more advanced scenarios, we have trainable classifiers. Now these go beyond kind of those traditional, please look out for this in my environment. It's actually using machine learning to recognize patterns that traditional methods might miss. We can combine that with exact data match. I'm throwing all these lovely data protection terms at you here, but exact data match can connect directly to structured data, such as a database. And essentially what it's doing is it's trying to reduce the false positives and improve accuracy because it's looking for things that are unique to your business, your environment. Once you've mapped your data landscape, it's time to protect it. So we know what we've got. Now we can think about how to protect that sensitive information that we've found. We know where it lives, and we begin these days with secure by default. So security comes first. In years gone by, historically, there's always been a balance between user experience and impact and security. These days, security tends to take more of a priority. And all we're saying here is that secure by default just means encrypted data and labels from day one. Right out of the box, instead of relying on users to do it manually, we have a soft approach to get this stuff off the ground and start protecting from day one. And labels are the foundation of this. So you start by creating some basic sensitivity labels that mark and protect your data. So it knows when to apply encryption, access controls, and usage restrictions. For those familiar with this area, Microsoft Information Protection, or as it used to be called, Azure Information Protection, is actually the engine that drives this. So the default approach is emails and files are encrypted and labeled automatically, and there are different stages of enforcement with this, so allowing users to pick from suggested labels or follow sort of policy-based defaults at a later point. For those advanced cases, there's also auto-labeling. That basically lets the system apply labels automatically, whether on the client side, say for example, a pop-up suggestion when you're about to send an email, or server side, so automatically classifying content stored in mailboxes or data at rest. These labels also come into play when we think about label-based protection that extends beyond Microsoft. So outside of the Microsoft ecosystem, Office files, you can actually encrypt and restrict access to things like PDFs, even seen customers use it with CAD drawings, Google Suite files. So how does that work? So how do you encrypt things that are going externally but are being accessed on a different platform outside of 365, for example? So let's say you have a PDF and you've labeled it. An example of a label would be internal only, because that document might contain a SIT or sensitive information type like company roadmap, company beta news, or something that you really shouldn't have going outside the business. You're sending it to a partner company, not a 365 user. They use Google Suite, for example. The label-based protection will encrypt that document. The way that it works is only people who authenticate with your company domain or a trusted domain will be able to decrypt and open that file. That's real-world automated protection built right into the data itself. So at stage 2, we've protected the data at the data level. Step 3, prevent data loss. We're going to try and prevent the loss of data from your business. So this is DLP, data loss prevention. At this point, your files are encrypted and labeled, so we understand what they are, where they're going, and we can protect the documents and data with encryption and access control. But you still need to control how that data moves. That's where DLP kicks in. It's basically adding another layer of defense. We talk about this defense in depth. This additional layer is monitoring and restricting data in transit or in motion. For example, stopping someone at emailing a confidential document to their personal Gmail or uploading it to an unapproved cloud storage service. DLP rules look for specific labels. So those labels come into play again, or the SITs, so that data classification piece is being used again. And depending on what it sees, it takes action, such as blocking the transfer, warning the user, or just logging an alert, or all of the above. So think of this like your classification and labeling systems define what is sensitive, and DLP enforces how that data can flow. If a file contains PII, financial data, specific labels like confidential, DLP ensures it can't be sent outside approved boundaries. This combination of labeling and DLP creates that defense in depth, multiple layers, protecting your information at every stage. Finally, we have manage your data. So this is about data management, making sure data is retained or removed properly. Product here, I didn't want to talk about products too much in this, it's more about strategy, but this is Microsoft Purview data lifecycle management, and it's essentially there to help you apply policies that handle retention, deletion, archival processes automatically based on business rules, or based on business rules, but those business rules that tend to be based on compliance regulatory requirements that you have as an organization. We're scanning resources like file shares, SMB paths, SharePoint to ensure policies apply consistently as well across the ecosystem, across your tech stack, even across on-prem systems too. And it's important to do this. One of the things that a lot of customers don't really think about is the risk of stale data. So we have buckets of old, often data that contains sensitive information that's no longer relevant. So there's no value. It's not delivering any value to the business. We're just keeping it because we've got it. Deleting data is a bit of a scary thing, but it could be a liability. Keeping it around increases risk. Again, it's not delivering any value. And in the age of AI, and you have models that you're training on your data that you have in your business, it could even pollute your models with outdated or irrelevant content. Having this habit, this life cycle, this way of regularly purging, archiving, or even just segregating that expired data, keep what's necessary and securely remove what is not necessary is the message on step 4. We want to avoid impacting the quality of AI output because you're feeding it potentially out of date, polluted content. So to recap, 4 steps, but hopefully it gives you a bigger picture at a high level of how this works. So we're looking at the data, discovering, classifying it, then we're applying protection and protecting the data using encryption and labeling, then DLP to control where it goes, prevent accidental or even intentional leaks, and then finally we're managing the data lifecycle to stay compliant and reduce risk. Together, these steps create a comprehensive, modern approach to data governance and protection. Thanks for watching, and if you found this useful, subscribe for more walkthroughs on Microsoft security and data protection and so much more. I hope you found this video useful and informative, and I hope you now understand the basics of data protection, data loss prevention, and also data governance. Stay tuned for the next video where I'll be going into each of these topics in a little bit more detail.